They said humans were nothing special in the galaxy, just another primitive species crawling out of their mud ball planet, barely worthy of notice among the ancient stellar empires. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled for millennia, their crystalline technology and telepathic abilities making them seemingly invincible. Humans? They were just useful laborers, if that. But 50 years ago, something happened that the galaxy would never forget. A single human made a choice that defied everything the universe thought it knew about these strange bipeds from Earth. One moment of impossible courage. One act of pure, selfless sacrifice that saved the life of someone who should have been his enemy. Today, as the golden spires of the Zephyrian capital world gleam under their twin suns, something unprecedented is about to happen. The Empress herself, ruler of 1,000 worlds, commander of fleets that could shatter stars, is walking toward a simple human delegation. Her crystalline crown catches the light as she does something no Zephyrian ruler has done in 5,000 years. She bows. The galaxy watches in stunned silence as the most powerful being in known space lowers her head to creatures she once considered barely above animals. But those who know the story understand. They remember Marcus Chun, a maintenance worker who chose to save an alien child at the cost of his own life. They remember how that child grew up to become an empress who would never forget the human who showed her what true nobility really meant. This is that story. The story of how one man's sacrifice changed the fate of humanity forever. And why today, 50 years later, an empire finally acknowledges a debt that can never truly be repaid. Marcus Chun wiped the grease from his hands with a worn cloth as he crawled out from beneath the massive atmospheric processor. The Zephyrian mining station orbiting Kepler 442c hummed with constant activity, its crystalline walls pulsing with energy that hurt human eyes to look at directly. Marcus had learned to keep his gaze down during his 3 years of service here. It was safer that way. The mining station Zirion 7 was a marvel of Zephyrian engineering, a kilometer-long structure that could strip an entire asteroid of precious minerals in just hours. To the crystalline beings who built it, it was a routine industrial facility. To Marcus and the 43 other humans working aboard, it was both a prison and a livelihood. They had signed 5-year contract for hazardous duty pay that would set their families up for life. The catch was surviving to collect it. Chun, status report on Processor 7, barked Supervisor Kextai through the translation device around his neck. The Zephyrian stood nearly 3 meters tall, his crystalline body refracting light in patterns that indicated mild irritation. Marcus had learned to read these emotional light displays over the years. It was a survival skill. Running at 92% efficiency, Supervisor, Marcus replied, keeping his voice steady. The tertiary intake valve needed adjustment, but it's within operational parameters now. Kextai's body flashed a brief pattern of acknowledgement before he moved on to harass another human worker. Marcus gathered his tools, preparing to move to the next maintenance task on his list. The work was dangerous and exhausting, but he had made peace with it. Every credit he earned was one step closer to buying his daughter's way into the university on Mars. Sarah wanted to study xenobiology, a field that required extensive education and connections, the kind of connections that only came with money. As Marcus made his way through the station's narrow maintenance corridors, he reflected on how different his life had become. 3 years ago, he had been just another unemployed engineer on Earth, struggling to make ends meet after the economic collapse following humanity's discovery that they were not alone in the universe. The revelation that dozens of alien species have been trading and communicating for millennia while Earth remained ignorant had shattered human confidence and economy alike. The Zephyrians had been among the first to offer humans employment opportunities off-world. The jobs were dangerous, the conditions harsh, but the pay was real and in galactic standard credits that actually held value across the galaxy. For someone with Marcus's background in mechanical engineering and no alien language skills, maintenance work was the only option. The station shuddered slightly as another asteroid was captured in the processing bay. Marcus felt the vibration through the deck plates and automatically checked his handheld scanner. All systems showed green, but something fell off. After 3 years of working on Zephyrian technology, he had developed an intuition for the machines that served him well. The crystalline technology operated on principles that human science was only beginning to understand, but machines were machines, regardless of who built them. Marcus made his way to the central monitoring station, a vast chamber filled with floating holographic displays that showed every system on the facility. The Zephyrian technicians moved through the space like dancers, their long limbs adjusting controls with fluid grace. Marcus knew better than to approach them directly unless there was an emergency. Humans were tolerated on the station, but they were not welcomed. However, Marcus noticed something that made his blood run cold. Deep in the maze of system displays, a small indicator was flashing amber. The resonance dampener for the primary fusion core was showing fluctuations. It was subtle, the kind of problem that might go unnoticed for hours until it became catastrophic. In a Zephyrian facility processing dangerous materials, even minor failures could cascade into disasters. Marcus hesitated. Protocol demanded that he report any concerns to his supervisor, who would then decide whether to inform the Zephyrian technicians. But Kextai was nowhere to be found, and the fluctuations were increasing. Marcus had seen this pattern before during his training on Earth. The dampener was failing, and when it did, the feedback could overload the fusion core's containment field. Taking a deep breath, Marcus approached the nearest Zephyrian technician. The being's crystalline body immediately flashed with patterns of annoyance at being disturbed by a human. Marcus pointed to the display showing the resonance dampener readings. "Honored technician, the dampener shows dangerous fluctuations," Marcus said in his halting Zephyrian. He had picked up some of the language over the years, though he knew his pronunciation was terrible. The technician's body flashed with what Marcus recognized as dismissive amusement. "Human eyes see patterns where none exist," the being replied in heavily accented standard. "Return to your duties." Marcus felt a familiar frustration. This was not the first time his concerns had been dismissed. The Zephyrians viewed humans as barely competent laborers, certainly not capable of understanding their advanced technology. But Marcus knew what he was seeing. The resonance dampener was failing, and if it went, the explosion would destroy half the station and everyone on it. As Marcus walked away, he continued to monitor the readings on his handheld scanner. The fluctuations were growing worse. He tried to find Supervisor Kextai, but learned that the Zephyrian was in a meeting with the station commander. Marcus could request an emergency interrupt, but doing so without absolute certainty would result in severe punishment. False alarms were taken very seriously. The station shuddered again, more violently this time. Marcus checked his scanner and saw that the dampener fluctuations had increased by another 15%. At this rate, they had maybe 30 minutes before a critical failure. He made a decision that would change everything. Marcus began making his way to the fusion core chamber. If the Zephyrians would not listen to his warnings, perhaps he could fix the problem himself. It was dangerous and strictly forbidden for humans to work on core systems, but Marcus had studied the schematics extensively during his off hours. He understood the principles, even if the execution was beyond normal human capabilities. The fusion core chamber was located in the most heavily protected section of the station. Marcus used his maintenance access codes to navigate the security checkpoints, his heart pounding as he approached the massive chamber that housed the station's power source. The fusion core itself was a thing of beauty and terror, a contained star that powered the entire facility. The resonance dampener was a crystalline structure the size of a small building, its faceted surface pulsing with energy patterns. Marcus could see the instability with his naked eye now. The normally steady pulse was erratic, and small electrical discharges were beginning to arc across its surface. He had perhaps 20 minutes to solve the problem before containment failure. Marcus connected his tools to the dampener's maintenance interface, a task made difficult by the fact that Zephyrian technology was designed for beings with different physiology. His human hands struggled with controls meant for crystalline fingers that could interface directly with the machinery. But he persisted, following the repair protocols he had memorized. As he worked, Marcus became aware that he was no longer alone in the chamber. A small figure had entered, moving with the fluid grace characteristic of young Zephyrians. Marcus glanced over and was surprised to see what appeared to be a Zephyrian child, perhaps the equivalent of a human 10-year-old. The young being's crystalline body pulsed with curiosity patterns as it watched Marcus work. "You should not be here, young one," Marcus said in his broken Zephyrian. "This place is dangerous." The child's body flashed with amusement. "Neither should you, human. The core chambers are forbidden to your kind." Marcus continued his work, trying to stabilize the dampener's resonance frequency. "Sometimes rules must be broken to prevent greater harm," he replied. "The dampener is failing. If it collapses, many will die." The Zephyrian child moved closer, its natural curiosity overcoming caution. "How can you know this? Humans cannot read the deep patterns." "We have our ways," Marcus said, finally, managing to access the dampener's core programming. What he found made his blood freeze. The failure was not random. Someone had sabotaged the system, introducing a virus that was gradually degrading the resonance patterns. This was not an accident, but an act of terrorism. The child had moved even closer, fascinated by Marcus's work. Too close. As Marcus tried to trace the source of the virus, the dampener gave a violent shudder. A massive electrical discharge erupted from its surface, arcing directly toward where the young Zephyrian stood. Marcus did not think. He simply moved. Years of industrial accident training took over, and he threw himself between the child and the deadly energy discharge. The electricity struck him full force, sending thousands of volts through his human body. He felt his muscles lock up, his heart stutter, and his vision fade as he collapsed to the deck. But the child was safe. As consciousness fled, Marcus heard alarms beginning to sound throughout the station. His sacrifice had bought them time, but the dampener was still failing. With his last moments of awareness, he managed to transmit the virus signature to the station's security systems before darkness claimed him. The young Zephyrian stood over the fallen human, her crystalline body pulsing with patterns of shock and confusion. She had never seen a being sacrifice itself for another, especially not for one of a different species. In Zephyrian culture, self-preservation was considered the highest virtue. Yet this human had thrown away his life to save hers without hesitation. As station security and medical teams rushed into the chamber, the child knelt beside Marcus's still form. She pressed one crystalline hand to his forehead, a gesture of deep respect in Zephyrian culture. "I will remember," she whispered in her own language. "I will always remember." The security teams quickly identified and neutralized the virus in the dampener system, preventing the catastrophic failure that would have killed hundreds. Marcus Chin's sacrifice had not only saved the life of one young Zephyrian, but had exposed a terrorist plot that could have destroyed the entire station. But Marcus knew none of this. He lay in the station's medical bay, his body ravaged by the electrical discharge. Human medicine was limited on the Zephyrian station, and his injuries were severe. The doctors gave him perhaps hours to live, certainly no more than days. The young Zephyrian returned to the medical bay again and again, watching over the human who had saved her life. Her presence puzzled the medical staff, as Zephyrians rarely showed interest in other species' welfare. But the child seemed determined to maintain her vigil. "Why do you watch over this human?" asked Dr. Veltar, the station's chief medical officer. "He saved me," the child replied simply. "He chose my life over his own. I must understand why." Dr. Veltar's crystalline body flickered with complex patterns. Humans are strange creatures. Their motivations are often inexplicable. "No," the child said firmly. "This was not strange. This was noble. This was what we claim to value, but rarely demonstrate." As Marcus lay dying, unaware of the profound impact his final act would have on the future of human-Zephyrian relations, the child made a decision. She would not forget this sacrifice. She would carry the memory of this human's nobility with her for the rest of her life. And that life, as it turned out, will be far more significant than anyone could have imagined. The child's full name was Silasindra Vel Kethera, and she was the granddaughter of Empress Zephyriana, ruler of the Zephyrian Empire. She had been visiting the mining station as part of her education in how the Empire's industrial operations functioned. Her presence on the station was supposed to be secret, known only to the highest-ranking officers. Marcus Chun, a simple maintenance worker from Earth, had unknowingly saved the life of a future Empress. And in doing so, he had planted a seed that would grow into something that would change the relationship between humanity and the galaxy forever. Marcus Chen's eyes opened to a sight that defied all logic and expectation. Instead of the sterile medical bay where he had expected to die, he found himself lying on what appeared to be a bed made of living crystal. The surface was warm and somehow soft despite its mineral appearance, conforming to his body in a way that provided perfect comfort. Above him, a vaulted ceiling of pale blue crystal filtered sunlight into gentle, healing rays. He tried to sit up and was amazed to discover that he could move without pain. The electrical burns that should have covered his body were gone, replaced by healthy pink skin. His muscles, which should have been destroyed by the massive voltage he had absorbed, responded normally to his commands. It was as if the injury had never happened. "You are awake," came a melodious voice from somewhere to his right. Marcus turned to see a Zephyrian unlike any he had encountered during his years on the mining station. This being was tall and elegant, with crystalline skin that seemed to contain entire galaxies of light. The patterns flowing across her surface were incredibly complex, speaking of vast intelligence and deep emotion. "I'm Healer Nixandra," the being continued, her standard flawless and musical. "You have been in our care for 7 cycles. We were uncertain whether human physiology would respond to our healing arts." Marcus struggled to process this information. 7 cycles? I was dying. The electrical discharge should have killed me instantly. It nearly did, Nixandra agreed, moving closer with the fluid grace characteristic of her species. Your heart stopped for nearly 3 standard minutes. Your neural patterns showed signs of severe trauma. By all measures we understand, you should have perished. Then how? Marcus asked, running his hands over his unmarked skin. You were brought here by order of the Imperial Princess herself, Nixandra explained. The young one you saved on the station. She insisted that every resource of the Empire be dedicated to preserving your life. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the crystal chamber's temperature. Imperial Princess? You mean the child I saved was? Silasindra Vel Kethera, granddaughter of Empress Zephyriana, and third in line to the crystal throne, Nixandra confirmed. Your act of sacrifice has created what you humans might call a diplomatic situation. Before Marcus could respond to this startling revelation, the chamber's entrance dilated with a soft chiming sound. 3 figures entered, 2 adults flanking a smaller form that Marcus immediately recognized. It was the Zephyrian child from the mining station, though she now wore robes that marked her royal status. Her crystalline body pulsed with patterns of excitement and relief. He lives, she said, her young voice carrying notes of joy that needed no translation. The human lives. The 2 adults accompanying her were clearly high-ranking officials. The male was massive even by Zephyrian standards, his crystalline form shot through with veins of gold that indicated military rank. The female was smaller, but radiated an aura of authority that made Marcus's spine straighten automatically. I am General Kexthal, the male announced, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones of formal address. Commander of the 3rd Imperial Fleet. This is Chancellor Miranda, first advisor to Her Imperial Majesty. Marcus attempted to rise from the crystal bed, but Chancellor Miranda gestured for him to remain seated. Her crystalline features shifted into what Marcus had learned to recognize as a smile among Zephyrians. There is no need for ceremony, Marcus Chin of Earth, she said. You are here as an honored guest of the Empire. not a prisoner or supplicant. I don't understand, Marcus said honestly. I'm just a maintenance worker. I did what anyone would have done in that situation. Princess Silasandra moved closer, her young features animated with excitement. But that is exactly the point, is it not? You believe that anyone would sacrifice their life for a stranger, even one of a different species. Yet in all my studies of galactic history, I have found precious few examples of such selflessness. General Kexthol's form flickered with patterns Marcus could not interpret. The princess has become quite the philosopher since her experience on the mining station. She has requested extensive libraries on human culture and history. Her tutors are somewhat bewildered. I want to understand, the princess said firmly. This human showed me something I had never seen before, something that our own culture claims to value but rarely demonstrates. True nobility without expectation of reward. Chancellor Miranda's expression shifted to one of concern. Which brings us to the matter at hand, Marcus Chun. Your sacrifice has created certain obligations that the Empire must address. The life debt of a member of the imperial family is not a small matter. Marcus felt a growing sense of unease. I don't want any reward. I just want to return to my family on Earth. It is not quite that simple, General Kexthel explained. The princess's presence on that mining station was classified. Her safety is a matter of imperial security. Your actions exposed certain vulnerabilities in our protection protocols. More than that, Princess Silasandra interjected. The virus that caused the dampener failure was traced to a terrorist cell operating within the Empire. A group calling itself the Pure Crystal Movement, which seeks to eliminate all non-Zephyrian influences from our society. Marcus began to understand the implications. They were targeting the human workers on the station. Correct, Chancellor Miranda confirmed. The explosion would have killed all 44 humans aboard, along with several hundred Zephyrian workers. But, more importantly for galactic politics, it would have killed a member of the imperial family in what would have appeared to be an industrial accident. The Pure Crystal Movement planned to use the princess's death to justify expelling all humans from Empire space, General Kexthal added. They would have blamed human incompetence for the disaster. Your actions not only saved lives, but exposed their plot before it could succeed. Princess Silasandra moved to stand directly before Marcus, her young features serious. You have given me a great gift, Marcus Chun. Not just my life, but knowledge. You have shown me that there are forms of courage and nobility that exist beyond our understanding. I wish to learn more about your species, about this capacity for selfless sacrifice. I've arranged for you to have access to our most complete archives of human culture and history, Chancellor Miranda said to the princess. But that raises the question of what to do with our human friend here. Marcus felt a growing alarm. I told you, I just want to go home to my family. And you shall, General Kexthal assured him. But first, there are matters of imperial security to address. The Pure Crystal Movement is still active. Your identification of their virus has given us a significant advantage, but they will likely target you for elimination. Why would they care about me? Because you are proof that humans are capable of more than they claim, Princess Silasandra explained. Your sacrifice undermines their entire philosophy. If humans can demonstrate noble qualities that exceed those of pure-blood Zephyrians, then their supremacist ideology collapses. Chancellor Miranda activated a holographic display that showed star charts of the local sector. We have detected increased activity among pure crystal cells since news of the mining station incident spread. They are planning something significant. Our intelligence suggests they intend to strike at human colonies directly, General Kexthal added grimly. If they cannot use your people as scapegoats, they will eliminate them as competitors. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. What does this have to do with me? Everything, Princess Silasandra said simply. You are the symbol of what they seek to destroy. Human nobility, human courage, human worth. They will not rest while you live to contradict their beliefs. Healer Nixandra, who had been silently observing the conversation, spoke for the first time since the officials arrived. There is another matter to consider. The healing Marcus has undergone was not entirely conventional. All eyes turned to the medical officer. Chancellor Miranda's crystalline features shifted into an expression of concern. Explain. The damage to his nervous system was too extensive for standard treatment, Nixandra explained. To save his life, I was forced to use forbidden techniques. Imperial healing methods that were banned after the Third Dynasty Wars. What kind of techniques? Marcus asked, though he was not certain he wanted to know the answer. Crystal symbiosis, Nixandra said quietly. I introduced microscopic Zephyrian healing crystals into your nervous system. They have repaired the damage and continue to enhance your body's natural healing capabilities. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. General Kexthal was the first to speak. You've created a hybrid. Not exactly, Nixandra corrected. Marcus remains fully human. But the crystals have formed a symbiotic relationship with his nervous system. He now possesses enhanced reflexes, improved pattern recognition, and limited resistance to energy-based attacks. Marcus examined his hands, looking for any visible sign of the changes. I feel normal. You would, Princess Silasandra said with excitement. The symbiotic crystals integrate completely with biological systems. But this means you are no longer entirely human, at least in the eyes of the Empire's medical classification. Chancellor Miranda's expression had become deeply troubled. This creates unprecedented legal complications. Marcus is neither fully human nor Zephyrian. He exists in a classification gap that our legal system has never addressed. Which brings us back to the question of what to do with him, General Kexthal observed. He cannot simply return to Earth as if nothing has happened. The modifications to his physiology would be detected by human medical science. Marcus felt a growing sense of panic. Are you saying I can never go home? Not immediately, Chancellor Miranda said gently. But we may be able to find a solution that serves everyone's interests. The Empire has a proposal to make. Princess Silasandra moved closer, her young features eager. I have requested permission to study human culture directly, not through archives and reports, but through interaction with humans themselves. I want to understand what makes your species capable of the nobility you demonstrated. And the Empire faces a significant threat from the pure crystal movement, General Kexthal added. We need someone who understands both human and Zephyrian cultures to help us combat their extremism. Chancellor Miranda activated another holographic display. We propose that you serve as cultural liaison between the Empire and humanity. You would work with Princess Silasandra to develop new protocols for human-Zephyrian cooperation, while simultaneously helping our intelligence services counter pure crystal terrorism. In exchange, Princess Silasandra added eagerly, you would have access to Imperial medical technology to ensure your symbiotic crystals remain stable. And eventually, when the terrorist threat is neutralized, we would help you return to Earth with an explanation for your absence that protects both you and your family. Marcus considered the proposal carefully. It was not what he had planned for his life, but the alternatives seemed limited. How long would this assignment last? Difficult to say, General Kexthal admitted. The pure crystal movement has been growing for decades. Defeating them completely may take years. But think of what you could accomplish, Princess Silasandra urged. You could help bridge the gap between our species. You could prevent the kind of misunderstanding and prejudice that leads to terrorism and war. Marcus thought about his daughter Sarah and her dreams of studying xenobiology. Perhaps this unexpected turn could help her in ways he had never imagined. If I agree, can I send messages to my family? Let them know I'm alive and well. Of course, Chancellor Miranda assured him. We can arrange secure communications, and your salary as an Imperial Cultural Liaison will be considerably more than your maintenance worker wages. Princess Silasandra's crystalline features brightened with hope. Will you help us, Marcus Chun? Will you help me understand what makes humans capable of such sacrifice? Marcus looked around the crystal chamber at the alien beings who had saved his life and were now asking for his help. It was not the future he had planned, but It was a chance to make a difference in ways he had never imagined. "Yes," he said simply. "I'll help." The princess's entire body pulsed with joy patterns, a display of emotion so pure and intense that even the formal adult smiled. "Then we begin immediately. I have so many questions about human culture and psychology, starting with this concept you call heroism." As Marcus began his new life as the first human cultural liaison to the Zephyrian Empire, he had no way of knowing that his decisions in the coming years would shape the future relationship between humanity and the galaxy. The young princess who studied him so eagerly would one day rule the most powerful empire in known space, and the lessons she learned from him would influence policies affecting billions of beings. The seed of change had been planted with his sacrifice. Now it was beginning to grow. 2 years had passed since Marcus Chan began his service as cultural liaison to the Zephyrian Empire, and the experience had transformed both teacher and student in ways neither had anticipated. The Crystal Palace that served as Princess Silasandra's residence had become a unique center of learning where human and Zephyrian knowledge blended in unprecedented ways. Marcus stood before a vast holographic display showing the current deployment of Imperial fleets across the galaxy. Red indicators marked locations where pure crystal terrorist cells had been detected or suspected. The scope of the threat had grown far beyond what anyone had initially imagined. "They have escalated again," Princess Silasandra observed, her crystalline form now taller and more mature than when they had first met. At the equivalent of a human 16-year-old, she had grown into her role as an imperial scholar with remarkable grace. 17 human colonies have been attacked in the past 6 months. Marcus studied the tactical display with eyes that had been enhanced by Zephyrian technology. The symbiotic crystals in his nervous system allowed him to process visual information in ways no human had ever experienced. He could see patterns in the data that would have escaped normal perception. "They're not random attacks," Marcus said, highlighting specific star systems with his thoughts. The interface responded to his neural commands, a skill that had taken months to master. "Look at the selection criteria. They're targeting colonies with strong cultural preservation programs." "What do you mean?" the princess asked, moving closer to examine his analysis. Marcus manipulated the display to show cultural data about each targeted colony. New Geneva, with its Human Rights Institute. Harmony Station, where they're developing new human-alien cooperation protocols. Eden's Garden, which serves as a cultural exchange center. They're systematically attacking symbols of human achievement and dignity. Princess Silasandra's form flickered with patterns of anger and concern. They seek to reduce humans to the role of servants and laborers once again. Your nobility threatens their entire worldview. "It's more than that," Marcus said grimly. "They're preparing for something larger. These attacks are meant to provoke a human response, something they can use to justify more extreme measures." The chamber's entrance chimed, and Chancellor Miranda entered with her usual purposeful stride. Her crystalline features were set in expressions of deep concern. "Your analysis was correct, Marcus. Our intelligence networks have intercepted pure crystal communications, suggesting a major operation is planned for the Galactic Council Summit next month." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The Galactic Council Summit was the most important diplomatic gathering in known space, where representatives from hundreds of species met to discuss trade agreements, territorial disputes, and mutual defense pacts. An attack on such a gathering will be an act of war against the entire galactic community. "What kind of operation?" Princess Silasandra asked. "That remains unclear," Chancellor Miranda admitted. "But the communications references suggest they plan to demonstrate the true nature of inferior species during the summit proceedings." Marcus began manipulating the holographic display to show the summit location on Nexus Prime, the neutral world where the Galactic Council maintained its headquarters. If they're planning a public demonstration, they'll want maximum visibility and minimal security interference. The summit sessions are broadcast across the galaxy, Princess Silasandra noted. Any attack would be witnessed by billions of beings simultaneously, which suggests they're not planning a simple bombing, Marcus realized. They want to stage something that supports their supremacist message, something that makes humans look inferior or dangerous. Chancellor Miranda activated additional displays showing the security arrangements for the summit. The human delegation will be led by Ambassador Sarah Mitchell from Earth's United Colonies. She specifically requested enhanced cooperation protocols with the Empire. Marcus felt a moment of pride at the mention of increased human-Zephyrian cooperation. His work with Princess Alessandra had contributed to new diplomatic frameworks that were gradually improving relations between the species. But the Pride Crystal threat cast a shadow over these achievements. "We need to be there," Princess Alessandra announced suddenly. "At the summit, if the Pure Crystal movement is planning something involving humans, our combined expertise will be essential for preventing it." Chancellor Miranda's crystalline features shifted into surprise. "Princess, your safety at such a gathering would be impossible to guarantee. The Pure Crystal movement has demonstrated sophisticated capabilities, which is exactly why I must attend," the princess replied firmly. "Marcus has taught me that true nobility requires accepting risk for the greater good. If I hide behind palace walls while others face danger, what kind of leader will I become?" Marcus found himself caught between admiration for her courage and concern for her safety. Over the past 2 years, he had watched Princess Alessandra grow from a curious child into a remarkable young leader. Her studies of human culture had given her perspectives that no other Zephyrian possessed, but that same knowledge made her a target for extremists. "There may be a way," Marcus said slowly, an idea forming in his mind. "The Pure Crystal movement sees me as a symbol of human threat to Zephyrian purity. If I'm visibly present at the summit, they may focus their attention on me rather than broader targets." "Absolutely not," Princess Alessandra said immediately. "I will not allow you to use yourself as bait." "It's not bait," Marcus explained. "It's intelligent deployment of assets. My enhanced reflexes and energy resistance make me harder to kill than a normal human, and my presence would draw their focus while giving you opportunity to identify and counter their actual plan." Chancellor Miranda studied the tactical implications. "It has merit. The Pure Crystal movement's communications have specifically mentioned eliminating the corrupted human on several occasions. They clearly see Marcus as a high-priority target, because he proves everything they believe is wrong," Princess Alessandra said with pride. "Marcus demonstrates that humans can possess nobility that exceeds that of many pure-blood Zephyrians. He is living contradiction to their supremacist ideology." Marcus felt a familiar sense of responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Then we use that against them. I attend the summit as part of the Zephyrian Cultural Liaison Program. My presence will be public and highly visible. While they focus on me, you and our security teams can identify and neutralize their real operation. The risk to you would be enormous," Chancellor Miranda warned. "Pure Crystal terrorists have demonstrated willingness to sacrifice their own lives to achieve their goals." "I'm aware of the risk," Marcus replied. "But the alternative is allowing them to potentially destabilize human-alien relations across the galaxy. The summit represents years of diplomatic progress. I won't let terrorists destroy that." Princess Alessandra was silent for a long moment, her crystalline form flickering with complex emotion patterns. "You would do this? Risk your life again for beings who are not even your own species?" "I would do this for the same reason I saved you on that mining station," Marcus said simply. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because the alternative is unacceptable." The princess's entire body suddenly blazed with patterns of intense emotion. "This is what I've been trying to understand," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "This willingness to sacrifice for principles rather than personal gain. Most Zephyrians cannot comprehend such motivation." "Most humans can't either," Marcus admitted. "But that doesn't mean it's not worth striving for." Chancellor Miranda began inputting data into her personal interface. "I will need to consult with General Kexthal and the Imperial Security Council. Such an operation would require extensive preparation and contingency planning. And I will need to accelerate my studies, Princess Silasandra announced. If I am to attend the summit, I must be prepared to represent the Empire's interests effectively. Marcus nodded, already beginning to mentally prepare for what might be his most dangerous mission yet. We'll also need to coordinate with the human delegation. Ambassador Mitchell should be warned about the potential threat. That may prove complicated, Chancellor Miranda observed. Earth's government has been reluctant to acknowledge the extent of pure crystal terrorism. They prefer to treat it as an internal Zephyrian matter. Then, we'll have to convince them otherwise, Marcus said grimly. The pure crystal movement won't limit their attacks to non-humans forever. Eventually, they'll target Earth itself. Princess Silasandra moved to stand beside Marcus, her crystalline hand touching his shoulder in a gesture of support. We will face this together, as we have faced everything else over these past 2 years. Your courage has taught me that true strength comes from protecting others, not dominating them. Marcus felt a surge of pride and affection for the remarkable young leader the princess had become. And your wisdom has taught me that understanding between species is possible, even when our natures seem incompatible. As they began detailed planning for the summit mission, none of them fully realized that they were about to enter a crucible that would test everything they had learned about cooperation, sacrifice, and the true meaning of nobility. The pure crystal movement's ultimate plan was more ambitious and more dangerous than anyone suspected. But they would face it together, the human who had learned to think beyond his own species, and the Zephyrian who had learned that true nobility knew no boundaries of birth or biology. Their partnership had already changed both of their lives in profound ways. Soon, it would change the galaxy itself. The 3 months of preparation that followed were intensive beyond anything Marcus had ever experienced. His enhanced abilities were pushed to their limits as Imperial trainers taught him advanced combat techniques and infiltration skills. The symbiotic crystals in his nervous system were recalibrated to provide even greater protection against energy weapons and telepathic attacks. Princess Silasandra underwent her own intensive preparation, studying diplomatic protocols and security procedures while continuing her research into human psychology and motivation. Her tutors were amazed at her rapid progress and her unique insights into interspecies relations. But beneath all the planning and preparation, both teacher and student carried the weight of knowing that this mission could be their last. The pure crystal movement had grown increasingly desperate and violent as their ideology faced mounting challenges. They would not hesitate to kill anyone who threatened their vision of Zephyrian supremacy. Yet neither Marcus nor the princess wavered in their commitment. They had found something rare and precious in their partnership, a bridge between species that proved cooperation was not only possible, but transformative. They would risk everything to protect that bridge and the future it promised. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when human determination met Zephyrian wisdom in the face of extremist hatred. The results would echo through the stars for decades to come. The Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime were a marvel of engineering and diplomacy, a vast amphitheater where representatives from hundreds of species gathered to shape the future of the galaxy. The crystalline walls rose in terrace galleries, each section designed to accommodate the unique physical requirements of different alien biologies. At the center, a massive holographic projector displayed star charts, trade routes, and diplomatic agreements for all to see. Marcus Chun stood at the edge of the Zephyrian delegation's seating area, his enhanced senses scanning the crowd for any sign of threat. 3 days of summit proceedings had passed without incident, but his instincts told him that danger was approaching. The pure crystal movement had not gone to such elaborate planning just to watch peaceful negotiations. Princess Silasandra sat with the other young delegates in a special section reserved for the next generation of galactic leaders. At 18, she was among the youngest participants ever to attend a full council summit, but her contributions to the cultural exchange discussions had already marked her as a rising star in imperial politics. Her crystalline form radiated confidence and wisdom that impressed even the most experienced diplomats. Status report. Came General Kexthol's voice through Marcus's secure communicator. The general was coordinating security from a command center deep within the Nexus Prime facility. All quiet so far. Marcus subvocalized, his words transmitted by the crystals in his throat. But I'm detecting unusual energy signatures from several locations throughout the chamber. Elaborate, the general requested. Marcus focused his enhanced vision on the areas that had caught his attention. Maintenance access panels showing trace electromagnetic residue. Someone has been accessing the facility's primary systems, probably over the past several days. Our security sweeps found nothing. They wouldn't, Marcus realized with growing alarm. Pure crystal technology operates on frequencies that most species can't detect. They've been using Zephyrian equipment to bypass standard security measures. At that moment, Ambassador Sarah Mitchell from Earth's United Colonies was approaching the central podium to deliver humanity's formal address to the Council. Marcus had met with her briefly the previous day, sharing what intelligence he could about potential terrorist threats. She had listened politely, but seemed skeptical that the pure crystal movement posed any real danger to the summit proceedings. Distinguished delegates, Ambassador Mitchell began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. Humanity stands at a crossroads in its relationship with the galactic community. 2 years ago, we were newcomers, struggling to find our place among species with millennia of experience in interstellar cooperation. Marcus watched the crowd's reaction to her words. Most delegates seemed engaged and supportive, but he noticed several Zephyrians in the upper galleries whose crystalline forms were flickering with patterns of agitation. They were too far away for him to identify clearly, but their behavior was suspicious. Today, we can point to concrete achievements in human-alien cooperation, Ambassador Mitchell continued. The cultural exchange programs with the Zephyrian Empire have produced new insights into the nature of interspecies understanding. We have learned that despite our biological differences, we share common values of courage, sacrifice, and dedication to the greater good. One of the agitated Zephyrians in the upper gallery was moving, leaving his seat, and heading for one of the maintenance access panels Marcus had identified earlier. Marcus activated his communicator immediately. General, we have movement in Gallery 7. One male Zephyrian, heading for maintenance access, point 17. Security teams are moving to intercept, came the immediate response. But Marcus could see that the security response would be too slow. The suspicious figure had reached the access panel and was interfacing with it directly, his crystalline fingers melding with the controls in a way that bypassed all mechanical safeguards. Whatever he was activating, it would happen in the next few seconds. Marcus made a decision that violated all security protocols. Instead of waiting for backup, he launched himself from the Zephyrian delegation area, using his enhanced reflexes to vault over several rows of seating and land in the central speaking area just as Ambassador Mitchell was reaching the climax of her address. "Get down," Marcus shouted, tackling the ambassador just as energy discharges began erupting from hidden weapon systems throughout the chamber. The attack was more sophisticated than anyone had anticipated. Pure crystal terrorists had spent months installing concealed energy projectors throughout the council chambers, weapons that could be activated remotely and targeted with deadly precision. But their primary target was not the assembled delegates. It was Marcus himself. Dozens of energy beams converged on his position as he shielded Ambassador Mitchell with his own body. The symbiotic crystals in his nervous system flared to life, absorbing and dissipating the incoming energy, but the sheer volume of fire was overwhelming even his enhanced defenses. He felt his protective systems beginning to overload. "Target the human," came amplified voices from throughout the chamber. Pure crystal terrorists were revealing themselves among the delegates, their crystalline forms blazing with patterns of fanatical hatred. "Destroy the abomination that corrupts our purity." Marcus rolled behind the speaker's podium, pulling Ambassador Mitchell with him as energy bolts continued to rain down. His enhanced senses showed him the tactical situation with crystal clarity. At least 30 terrorists were positioned throughout the chamber, all armed with military-grade weapons. The security forces were responding, but they were outnumbered and caught off guard. This was a trap. Ambassador Mitchell gasped as another volley of energy blasts shattered the podium above their heads. They wanted to draw you here. I know, Marcus replied, checking his own defensive capabilities. The symbiotic crystals were holding, but barely. But it's more than that. They're broadcasting this globally. They want the galaxy to see humans and Zephyrians fighting each other. Indeed, the terrorist attack was being transmitted across the galactic communications network. Billions of beings were watching as pure crystal extremists attempted to murder a human in the most sacred halls of galactic diplomacy. The political implications would be catastrophic if they succeeded. Princess Silasandra's voice came through Marcus's communicator, calm despite the chaos around her. Marcus, I'm in the emergency control center. I can access the chamber's defensive systems, but I need you to get to the central projector. Why? Marcus asked, firing back at the terrorists with a weapon he had taken from a fallen security guard. Because you're the key to everything, the princess explained. Your symbiotic crystals can interface directly with the chamber's main computer. I can upload a virus that will shut down their weapons, but it has to be transmitted through a hybrid nervous system. Marcus understood immediately. The pure crystal movement had used Zephyrian technology to carry out their attack, but that same technology could be turned against them. His unique physiology made him the perfect interface between human determination and Zephyrian technical capabilities. Cover me, Marcus said to Ambassador Mitchell as he prepared to make a desperate sprint across the chamber floor. Wait, she said, grabbing his arm. Why are you doing this? You could escape. Save yourself. Marcus looked at her with eyes that had seen too much violence and hatred. Because 50 years from now, I want to live in a galaxy where humans and aliens work together instead of killing each other. That's worth dying for. Marcus burst from cover and began running toward the central projector, dodging energy blasts from multiple directions. His enhanced reflexes allowed him to anticipate the terrorists' firing patterns, but several bolts found their mark, sending waves of pain through his body as his symbiotic crystals struggled to absorb the damage. He was halfway to his target when a massive explosion rocked the chamber. One of the terrorists had detonated a demolition charge, bringing down part of the upper gallery. Debris rained down around Marcus as he continued his desperate charge. Almost there, Princess Silasandra encouraged through the communicator. 10 more meters. Marcus could see the central projector ahead of him, its crystalline structure pulsing with the energy that powered the chamber's holographic displays. Behind him, he could hear the sounds of intense fighting as security forces engaged the terrorists in close combat. The fate of galactic diplomacy hung in the balance. A figure stepped into Marcus's path, a pure crystal extremist whose crystalline form blazed with patterns of absolute hatred. You die here, human abomination, the terrorist snarled, raising a weapon that hummed with deadly energy. Marcus didn't slow down. Instead, he channeled everything Princess Silasandra had taught him about Zephyrian combat techniques, using his momentum to deliver a strike that shattered the terrorist's weapon and sent him flying backward. The symbiotic crystals had given Marcus strength beyond human norms, but it was human determination that drove him forward. He reached the central projector and placed his hands on its crystalline surface. Immediately, his enhanced nervous system connected with the chamber's computer network, and he felt Princess Silasandra's presence joining his through the technological link. Together, she said, her consciousness flowing through the data streams. Upload the virus now. Marcus felt the alien software moving through his nervous system, using his hybrid physiology as a bridge between human and Zephyrian technology. The virus spread through the chamber's systems like wildfire, identifying and disabling every weapon the terrorists had installed. The energy barrage suddenly stopped. Throughout the chamber, pure crystal weapons simply died, their power sources neutralized by the elegant software Princess Alessandra had designed. The terrorists found themselves facing security forces with nothing but their bare hands. But the victory came at cost. The upload process had pushed Marcus's symbiotic crystals beyond their safe limits. He collapsed beside the projector, his enhanced physiology beginning to shut down as the crystals overloaded from strain. Princess Alessandra reached his side within seconds, her crystalline features blazing with concern. "Marcus, stay with me. The medical teams are coming." Marcus looked up at her with vision that was beginning to fade. "Do we stop them?" "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her crystalline face in patterns of light. "The terrorists are in custody. The summit will continue. You saved everything." "Good," Marcus whispered, his voice growing weak. "That's what matters." As consciousness faded, Marcus could hear Ambassador Mitchell addressing the chamber over the emergency communication system. "What you have witnessed today is not the failure of interspecies cooperation, but its greatest triumph. A human gave his life to protect not just our species, but the very principles that bind our galactic community together." But Marcus Chun was not dead, though he came closer than ever before. The symbiotic crystals had saved him again, but at a cost that would change him forever. As the medical teams worked to stabilize his condition, Princess Alessandra made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. The human who had sacrificed everything for an alien child had just done so again for an entire galaxy. It was time for that sacrifice to be properly acknowledged. The summit continued, but its focus had shifted from trade agreements and territorial disputes to a more fundamental question. What did the galaxy owe to those who sacrificed everything for its welfare? Princess Alessandra intended to provide an answer that would echo through the stars for generations to come. 50 years had passed since Marcus Chun made his sacrifice at the Galactic Council Summit, and the galaxy had been transformed by the ripples of that single act of courage. The pure crystal movement had collapsed in the aftermath of their failed attack, their supremacist ideology unable to survive in a universe where human had demonstrated nobility that surpassed their own. The surviving terrorists had been quietly rehabilitated rather than executed, their minds open to new possibilities through programs Princess Alessandra had personally designed. Now, in the golden light of the Zephyrian capital world's twin suns, an unprecedented ceremony was about to take place. Empress Alessandra Vel Kethera stood at the apex of the Crystal Palace's great terrace, her mature form radiating the wisdom and authority of a ruler who had guided her people for 3 decades. At 68, she had become the most beloved empress in Zephyrian history, known throughout the galaxy for her revolutionary policies of interspecies cooperation and cultural exchange. Before her, arranged in careful formation on the plaza below, stood the delegation from Earth's United Worlds Federation. Humanity had prospered beyond all expectations in the decades following the summit crisis, their reputation for courage and sacrifice opening doors across the galaxy that had previously remained closed. Human colonies now existed in every major sector, and human scientists, diplomats, and artists were welcomed wherever they traveled. At the center of the human delegation stood a figure who had become legend. Marcus Chun, now 91 years old, bore the marks of a life spent in service to others. His hair was white, his face lined with age, but his eyes remained sharp and alert. The symbiotic crystals had given him a lifespan beyond normal human limits, allowing him to witness the fruits of his sacrifice across 5 decades. Behind Marcus stood his family, grown and aged and filled with pride. His daughter Sarah had indeed become the xenobiologist she had dreamed of being, pioneering research that had revolutionized understanding of interspecies medicine. She was accompanied by her own children and grandchildren, all of whom bore the subtle marks of genetic enhancement that had become commonplace as human and alien medical knowledge merged. The ceremony had been 50 years in the making. Every year since the summit crisis, Empress Alessandra had sent Marcus a message on the anniversary of his sacrifice, thanking him for the lessons he had taught her about true nobility. Every year, Marcus had replied with humility, insisting that he had done nothing special. But the Empress had never forgotten her debt, and now, as she prepared to abdicate the throne to her own daughter, she intended to settle that debt in a way the galaxy would never forget. Citizens of the Empire, the Empress began, her voice carrying across the plaza and broadcast throughout Zephyrian space. Today we gather to acknowledge a debt that has gone too long unpaid. 50 years ago, a human showed us the true meaning of sacrifice, not once but twice. First, when he saved the life of a young Zephyrian on a remote mining station. Second, when he risked everything to protect the foundations of galactic civilization itself. Marcus felt uncomfortable with the attention, as he always had. Over the decades, he had become something of a celebrity throughout the galaxy, the human who had helped bridge the gap between species. Universities offered him honorary degrees, governments sought his advice on interspecies relations, and countless beings had named their children after him. But he had never grown comfortable with fame, preferring to work quietly behind the scenes. Marcus Chun, the Empress continued, her crystalline form pulsing with patterns of deep emotion. You taught a young Zephyrian that courage was not the absence of fear, but action in spite of fear. You showed us that nobility was not a birthright, but a choice. You demonstrated that the greatest strength came not from dominating others, but from protecting them. The plaza had fallen completely silent. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched as the most powerful ruler in known space prepared to do something unprecedented. For 50 years, I have carried the memory of your sacrifice, the Empress said, her voice carrying across the vast space. I have tried to rule as you would have ruled, to lead as you taught me to lead. Every policy I have enacted, every decision I have made, has been guided by the lessons you taught me about the true meaning of nobility. Marcus felt tears beginning to form in his eyes. He had never expected this, never imagined that his simple act of protecting a child would grow into something so profound. But words are insufficient to express what you have given us, the Empress continued. The galaxy itself is a better place because of your choices. Humans and Zephyrians work together now as equals and friends. The pure crystal movement's hatred has been replaced by understanding and cooperation. Children of different species play together on worlds across the galaxy, learning from each other instead of fearing each other. The Empress began to descend the great stairs of the Crystal Palace, her movements graceful and deliberate. Behind her came the entire Zephyrian court, thousands of crystalline beings following their ruler as she approached the human delegation. You asked for no reward, the Empress said as she drew near to Marcus. You sought no recognition. You simply acted according to your conscience, believing that protecting others was more important than protecting yourself. Such nobility demands acknowledgement, even when the noble soul would prefer to remain hidden. Marcus tried to step forward to protest that he deserved no special recognition, but Ambassador Sarah Mitchell gently placed a hand on his arm to stop him. She had coordinated with the Empress to ensure that this ceremony would proceed without interruption, knowing that Marcus would try to deflect the honor if given the chance. Therefore, the Empress announced, her voice resonating across the plaza and throughout the galaxy, I do now what no Zephyrian ruler has done in 5,000 years of our civilization's history. The Empress stopped directly before Marcus, her towering crystalline form casting shadows across the elderly human. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, she looked down at him with eyes that held the wisdom of decades and the gratitude of a lifetime. Then, slowly and deliberately, Empress Salasandra Velkethera, ruler of the Zephyrian Empire, commander of 1,000 worlds, began to bow. The action sent shock waves throughout the assembled crowd. In Zephyrian culture, the ruler never bowed to anyone. It was not merely unprecedented, it was revolutionary. Yet the Empress continued to lower her head until she was looking up at Marcus from a position of humility and respect. I bow to Marcus, Chun of Earth, she announced, her voice carrying clearly despite her position. I bow to the human who saved my life when I was a child. I bow to the man who taught me that true leadership means service to others. I bow to the being who showed our galaxy that nobility knows no boundaries of species or birth. Marcus stood frozen, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the gesture. Around the plaza, every Zephyrian present had followed their Empress's example, thousands of crystalline beings bowing to a single elderly human. The sight was breathtaking and profound, a moment that redefined the relationship between species. "Rise, Your Majesty," Marcus finally managed to say, his voice thick with emotion. "I am not worthy of such honor." The Empress straightened slowly, her crystalline features shining with tears of joy. "You are wrong, my friend. You are worthy of every honor we could bestow, and more. But this gesture is not just for you. It is for every human who has demonstrated the courage to do what is right despite the cost. It is for every being in the galaxy who chooses sacrifice over selfishness, service over dominance." Marcus felt the weight of history settling around them. This moment would be remembered for millennia, taught to children of every species as an example of how individual actions could transform entire civilizations. "Your Majesty," Marcus said quietly, "if I have taught you anything, let it be this. The greatest leaders are those who serve others rather than themselves. You have spent 50 years proving that lesson true." The Empress smiled, her entire form pulsing with patterns of joy and gratitude. "And you, Marcus Chun, have spent 50 years proving that heroism is not about grand gestures, but about simple choices made with courage and compassion." As the ceremony continued with formal presentations and speeches from galactic leaders, Marcus found himself thinking about the remarkable journey that had brought him to this moment. From a simple maintenance worker on a mining station to a bridge between species, his life had taken turns he could never have imagined. His daughter Sarah approached him as the formal ceremonies concluded. "Dad," she said softly, "do you ever regret the choices you made? The life you could have had if you had just minded your own business on that mining station." Marcus looked around at the incredible gathering, at the Zephyrians and humans mingling freely, at the children of different species playing together in the palace gardens, at the future his sacrifice had helped create. "No," he said simply, "I regret nothing. This is the galaxy I wanted to help build, a place where beings judge each other by their character rather than their species, a place where children can grow up without hatred or fear of those who are different." Princess Kalendra, the Empress's daughter and heir to the throne, approached them with her own children in tow. Like their grandmother, they had grown up learning about Marcus Chun and his sacrifice, studying human culture and philosophy as part of their imperial education. "Honored Marcus," the princess said with deep respect, "my mother has charged me with a question. When I assume the throne next year, how should I honor the memory of your sacrifice?" Marcus considered the question carefully. "Don't honor my sacrifice," he said finally. "Honor the principle behind it. Build a galaxy where such sacrifices become unnecessary because beings of different species trust and support each other naturally." The princess's crystalline features shifted into a smile. "That is exactly what my mother said you would answer. And it is exactly what we intend to do." As the ceremony concluded and the various delegations began to depart, Marcus stood alone on the Crystal Palace terrace, looking out over the city that had become a symbol of interspecies cooperation. The Empress approached him one final time, no longer surrounded by the formal trappings of state. "Old friend," she said quietly, "I have one last gift for you." She handed him a small crystalline device that pulsed with gentle light. "This contains the complete records of every life that has been saved because of the programs we developed together. Every human who found refuge in Empire space because you proved our species could coexist. Every Zephyrian who learned to see beyond their own prejudices because of your example." Marcus accepted the device with trembling hands. "How many?" 237 million beings, the Empress said softly. "That is the direct impact of your choice to save one alien child 50 years ago." Marcus felt the full weight of what his sacrifice had accomplished. Not just his own life, not just the Empress's life, but hundreds of millions of lives made better because two species had learned to trust each other. "Thank you," he whispered, not trusting his voice to say more. "No, my dear friend," the Empress replied. "Thank you. Thank you for showing us that the universe is vast enough for all of us to find our place in it. Thank you for proving that courage and compassion can triumph over hatred and fear." As the twin suns set over the Zephyrian capital, painting the crystal spires in shades of gold and amber, Marcus Chun stood beside the alien child he had saved 50 years ago, now grown into the most powerful ruler in the galaxy. Together, they had built something unprecedented, a future where the children of Earth and Zephyr and 100 other worlds could reach for the stars together, united not by species but by shared dreams of something greater than themselves. The galaxy would remember this day as the moment when an Empress bowed to a human. But Marcus would remember it as the day he finally understood that no sacrifice made in service of others was ever truly lost. Every act of courage, every gesture of compassion, every choice to put others before oneself rippled outward through time and space, touching lives in ways that could never be fully measured or understood. He had thrown himself in front of an energy discharge to save an alien child. That child had grown up to change the galaxy. And now, 50 years later, the galaxy was finally ready to acknowledge what one simple human had accomplished through nothing more than the choice to do what was right. The Empress bowed because that was the only appropriate response to such nobility. But Marcus Chun smiled because he knew that somewhere in the galaxy, other beings were making their own choices to sacrifice for others, to build bridges instead of walls, to choose courage over fear. The future was in good hands.